Welcome back, everyone, to What's Hot in the Bookstore.
And today, oh boy, are we looking at something special. We're dedicating the entire show to a book that's basically an event in itself, the huge, dark fantasy epic Alchemized by SenLinYu.
Yeah, huge is definitely the word. It's not just, another fantasy book. This feels like a genuine phenomenon brewing.
It really does. We're talking a publication date of September 23rd, 2025. And, well, everything points to this one really dominating the fantasy shelves for a good while.
Absolutely. So today we're going to do a really detailed preview. We'll get into the world, the characters, the plot, and maybe most importantly, that sort of searing emotional core that apparently makes this, 1,040-page book completely unputdownable.
That's the plan. We want to go way beyond just a quick plot summary. I mean, this is dark fantasy, right? So it's grappling with magic, sure, but also secrets, identity, and this really profound sense of grief. That emotional weight, I think, is the real hook here.
And the initial setup they give you is just, it's immediately gripping. You, the listener, you're dropped into this broken, completely devastated world right alongside the main character, Helena. And the crucial memories that define who she is, why she fought, they're just gone, wiped clean.
Yeah, it's intense from page one. It's broken, it's raw, and based on everything we're hearing, it's shaping up to be one of the most reflective character studies in fantasy for years.
It's not just an adventure story, then.
Not at all. This is a book you feel. It asks for a real emotional investment, and it makes you think, really makes you grapple with what defines someone when everything they thought they were is shattered.
Okay, let's start with the world then, Paladia. For a book this long, the setting needs to be rock solid, right? Needs to feel real and, as you said, deeply damaged.
Absolutely. And Paladia isn't just like a kingdom recovering from war. It's described as a realm that's been fundamentally shattered, broken by this long, grinding conflict.
So we're not talking about rebuilding efforts and hope.
Not really, no. It's more about this pervasive, ongoing sense of devastation. Think scarred landscapes, empty towns, this heavy atmosphere of emptiness and loss that's just everywhere. It's constantly reminding you of what's been lost.
Yeah.
The world itself is almost a character reflecting the trauma.
Wow. And into that vacuum, who takes control? Because power vacuums never stay empty for long.
Exactly. Paladia is now basically run by two pretty dark and oppressive groups. You've got these corrupt guild families acting like a new aristocracy. They control the politics, the money, the resources. They're the overlords.
Okay, the political power.
And propping them up, providing them muscle, are these incredibly cruel necromancers. They handle the magical enforcement, the military side of things, needed to keep everyone in line.
So necromancers as the enforcers, guilds running the show, that sets up a pretty bleak picture, a lot of ethical grayness right from the start.
It really does. And you can't understand their control without looking at the magic. There are these two opposing systems, basically defined by the war they just fought.
Right. One side is alchemy. That's linked to the resistance, trying to heal things, restore order. And that's where Helena, our protagonist, came from. She was an alchemist, a healer.
Yeah, alchemy is about repair, maybe even hope, but it's constantly fighting against the odds. Because the ruling powers, the guilds and necromancers, they rely entirely on the opposite, necromancy.
And necromancy isn't just spooky spells, it's woven into the power structure.
Totally. It's the engine of this totalitarian state. It's the mechanism of control, central to all the awful things happening in Paladia.
How does that work practically, though? How does necromancy translate into political and economic power beyond just scaring people? It sounds like a really thought-out system.
Oh, it is. And this is where the world-building depth really earns that epic label. We get details about things like the Undying, that's their term for the undead, and maybe even more chillingly, the necrothralls.
Necrothralls, that sounds controlled, not just mindless zombies.
Exactly. They're integrated right into the political and economic machine. The guild families use these necrothralls as essentially magically compelled slave labor, tireless workers for military tasks, for industry.
Whoa.
It sustains their whole post-war economy. You don't need a paid workforce if you can just reanimate one. It cements the guild's power. They don't just kill their enemies, they turn them into assets.
That's incredibly dark and smart from a world-building perspective. So the necromancers aren't just villains, they're essential parts of the economic system.
Yes, they have huge political influence because of it. The magic isn't separate from the class structure. It is the class structure in a way. Meanwhile, the Undying are the visible terror. the military force crushing any dissent.
It's functional oppression.
Right. SenLinYu made the magic functional, not just atmospheric. And this detailed, broken, horrifyingly functional world is the stage for Helena's very personal fight to get her memory, herself, back.
A world where life and death are tools of governance. Okay, that definitely sets the stage.
And it brings us right to Helena Marino. She's such a compelling character, precisely because she's defined by who she used to be and what she's lost.
So this past life was significant. A skilled alchemist, a healer, part of the resistance, trying to bring light back into this devastated place.
But where we find her now is tragic. She's a prisoner of war, captured after some kind of disaster we don't initially know about. And the captivity isn't just physical bars, it's mental.
Let's talk about that trauma, because you said it drives the plot. Her memories of the crucial period before capture are gone.
Completely erased. And it seems very specific, the key months leading up to her capture. She doesn't know critical mission details, who her contacts were, maybe even what secrets she was protecting.
Is it magical or psychological?
The text suggests it could be either or both, maybe magically induced, or maybe a trauma response so severe it's actually suppressed her alchemist abilities too. Our power to heal, the core of who she was, is blocked.
And she's alone.
Utterly alone. Her allies in the resistance are apparently dead. She has this profound lack of self, unable to remember why she was caught, who she could trust, anything.
And this is when she's handed over to the embodiment of the system that broke her, High Reeve Kaine.
Yeah, Kaine, a high-ranking necromancer. He becomes her interrogator, her jailer, and weirdly, the only key she might have to unlocking her own past. The power imbalance is just immense and immediate.
So what's Kaine's goal? Why is this amnesiac prisoner so important to the regime? What does she know that they need?
Kaine's job is to get those lost memories back. He needs to find out what she forgot.
Yeah.
Maybe it's intel against the remaining resistance, or, and this seems more likely, maybe it's something that could threaten the guilds themselves. Something about their internal politics or a hidden weakness.
Ah, so the information she holds, even unconsciously, might be dangerous to the people in power.
Exactly. Which means Kaine's methods have to be careful, ruthless maybe, but precise. It's not just about torture.
How does he try to get into her head then?
It's very psychological. Lots of manipulation, strategic pressure. He uses controlled stimuli, tries to exploit her confusion, maybe creating moments of emotional distress or odd familiarity to crack the amnesia. It sounds like a slow, intense process, forcing them into close proximity for long periods.
Okay, and this is where the central mystery deepens, right? It's not just about her secrets anymore.
Precisely. You quickly realize that Kaine, this powerful High Reeve, isn't necessarily a loyal company man. He seems to be hiding things too.
So the interrogator has secrets.
Which shifts everything. It's not just an interrogation. It's this complex, high-stakes psychological game between two people who are both hiding critical information, maybe even from themselves.
But hold on, if Kaine is so high up, how can Helena, a broken prisoner, possibly pose a threat to him? Or how could his secrets possibly align him with her? That sounds like the core tension.
That's the hook that keeps you reading for over 1,000 pages.
Yeah.
The implication is that Kaine's secrets might involve personal loyalties that clash with his job, or maybe some past trauma that actually mirrors Helena's.
Ah, a shared wound, maybe?
Perhaps. The fact that he seems to be conducting this interrogation somewhat off the official books suggests the truth she holds could expose corruption within the regime he serves. He's walking this incredibly fine line, and her memories are the shaky ground beneath him. That internal struggle elevates it way beyond a simple cat and mouse.
Wow, okay. That complex setup makes perfect sense for why the dynamic between Helena and Kaine gets so much praise.
Yeah, it's fascinating how it's analyzed. They start as polar opposites, right? The healer versus the killer. But the connection that forms isn't about opposition. It's about shared damage. They're described as mirror images of their traumas.
That's much deeper than your typical enemies to lovers thing. It suggests they're both damaged by the same war, maybe carrying guilt from things they did. Even on opposite sides, they see that pain in each other.
And that recognition is why the relationship develops so carefully. It's slow, and it has to be, because the power imbalance is always there. He's her captor. So the bond is tangled up with guilt, with mistrust, with a constant awareness of their roles in the war. It actively complicates things.
Does that slow, careful development risk slowing the butch down too much, especially given the length? Or does the internal conflict keep things tense?
The reviews really emphasize the latter. It might be slow burn, But the focus is squarely on the emotional and psychological journey, not a quick romance. It's about these two incredibly damaged people trying to navigate trust in a world built on lies. You spend a lot of time inside their heads, analyzing every look, every pause. The quiet moments are apparently incredibly powerful.
Tell me more about those quiet moments. How does the dialogue work if it's not straightforward?
The writing really shines in the sharp, revealing conversations. They're not confessing feelings, necessarily, but having these intense exchanges about survival, necessity, philosophy. Kaine might ask these probing questions to exploit her confusion, making her rely on him, while Helena, in her moments of clarity, might challenge his whole moral framework.
And the internal thoughts.
Crucial. You see Helena wrestling with her fragmented identity and this terrifying possibility that she might, just might, be starting to trust the enemy interrogator. It's this psychological dance that keeps you hooked, described as breathless reading.
Okay, so this intense character study connects directly to the bigger themes, doesn't it? It makes the book demanding, but in a good way.
Absolutely. It
Yeah.
tackles some huge, brutal questions, like the search for self. How do you define yourself when loyalty, pain, memory are all tangled up and unreliable? Helena's moral compass is just gone. Who is she loyal to when she can't remember her own allies?
And the role of memory itself. How much of your past, especially the painful parts you actually need to survive, is forgetting a valid way to heal, even if it means erasing who you were.
Right. Can you build a new identity, maybe even a better one, when the old one was based on loss and resistance? And underlying everything is trust. If you can't trust your own memories, your own feelings, how do you know what's right? Who do you trust? Not just Kaine, but even the fragments of memory that start coming back.
It really sounds like it uses that dark fantasy setting to explore some deep philosophical territory around trauma and recovery. Heavy stuff, but sounds incredibly rewarding.
Which brings us to the commitment.
Mm-hmm.
We have to talk about the sheer size of this thing. When we say epic, we mean it literally too. 140 pages.
Okay, yeah. That's a serious undertaking for a reader. But like you said, it probably means the author needed that space to build this world properly. You don't get to 1,040 pages with filler.
Exactly. And that length is tied to how the story is told, which isn't straightforward. It's nonlinear. You're constantly shifting between Helena's grim present and these fragmented, often traumatic flashbacks and memory fragments.
That sounds challenging. How does that work? Are the flashbacks in order or just random?
They seem to be triggered organically. A smell, a word, an emotion can suddenly unlock a piece of the past, which mirrors Helena's own fractured mind, right? So you, the reader, are putting the puzzle together piece by painful piece alongside her.
So it requires patience.
Definitely. The full context for why someone did something might not click until hundreds of pages later. You're basically playing detective with Helena's history.
Which sounds amazing for readers who love that kind of immersive puzzle.
It is. You're not just told the history, you experience the reconstruction of it. But it does mean the pacing isn't always fast. You can't expect constant action in a book this size.
So what should readers expect in terms of pace?
Expect sections where the focus is on atmosphere, on setting the scene, on Helena's internal state, detailing the guild depression, the feel of the ruined cities, her confusion. That stuff needs space to breathe to make the world feel real and immersive. It lets the darkness settle in.
And speaking of darkness, let's be clear about the tone. This is dark fantasy.
Unequivocally, it's passionate, it's serious, and it's fundamentally dark. There might be moments of light, connection, hope, but they are described as rare and really hard-fought, earned through struggle.
So not a light read.
Absolutely not. If you want cheerful escapism, look elsewhere. But if you crave moral ambiguity, deep psychological scars, and real intensity, then this 1040-page journey is exactly what you're looking for.
It sounds like it earns its length by giving everything the space it needs to develop properly.
Now let's talk about the author behind all this, SenLinYu, or just Sen. Knowing their background really helps understand the massive buzz around this book.
Okay, so Sen is an American author, grew up in the Pacific Northwest, lives in Portland now, and importantly, studied classical humanities and cultural studies.
Yeah, and that's not just trivia. That academic background clearly informs the book's themes. Classical humanities grapple with identity, power structures, history repeating itself, all central to Helena's story and the mess in Paladia. It gives the narrative that intellectual depth needed for this kind of scope.
But the huge anticipation, that really stems from Sen's earlier work online, right? We have to mention the fan fiction.
We absolutely do. Before Alchemized, SenLinYu became incredibly well-known, almost legendary in some circles, for a work called Manacled. It was a dystopian fan fiction.
And it got a massive following.
Huge and intense. because it didn't shy away from dark themes, complex power dynamics, characters dealing with immense trauma. It proved Sen could handle that kind of heavy psychological material and keep readers completely gripped.
So Manacle built this dedicated audience ready for dark, intense stories and proved Sen had the writing chops.
Exactly. And Alchemized is that successful leap into a fully original world. It takes those thematic concerns, that mood, that intensity, and translates them into the brand new setting of Paladia. It absolutely stands on its own. You don't need to know the fanfic, but it carries that same signature emotional weight that made Sen famous.
And the publishing industry clearly believes in this transition. The numbers behind the Alchemized launch are, well, staggering is the only word.
It's almost unheard of, especially if it was technically a debut original novel, even from a known online author. Get this. The initial U.S. print run alone is set for 750,000 copies.
750,000. Wow. That's not just confidence. That's betting on a generation-defining hit.
And it's global, too. Translations are already lined up for over 20 languages. They're pushing this everywhere, clearly believing these themes resonate universally.
Plus, the film rights are already sold before the book is even out.
Already secured. Which tells you they see the potential not just for a great read, but for something visually epic, too. The world, Helena and Kaine's dynamic, the scope of Paladia, they think it'll work on screen.
And the early buzz reflects this. It's dominating the pre-release charts.
It really is. #1 in dark fantasy, #1 in romantic fantasy, and #1 in action and adventure fantasy.
That combination tells you everything, doesn't it?
It tells you exactly the kind of ride you're in for. Dark, challenging, with a complex emotional core driving the tension, all within an epic fantasy structure. It hits all the right notes for serious genre fans.
Okay, let's wrap this up then. Alchemized isn't just another book for your 2025 list. It sounds like an immersive, epic undertaking. A deep dive into moral ambiguity and psychological reckoning.
Definitely. You get these unforgettable characters. Helena trying to rebuild her identity from nothing, Kaine confronting his own secrets, all playing out against this incredibly realized backdrop of war, necromancy, and the struggle for self.
And the ideal reader. It's someone who loves that moral grayness, demands complex emotional depth, and is ready to invest serious time in a huge story with characters who feel real because they're scarred. This is reading as an investment, not just a pastime.
And to really hammer home the physical reality of that investment, you're getting a deluxe edition, 1040 pages. It weighs almost 3 pounds, 2.95 pounds, specifically.
Wow.
It's a hefty book, a substantial object that perfectly mirrors the weight and scope of the story inside.
You're literally holding an epic. This sounds like the definition of a must-read for 2025. You really need to get your hands on this dark fantasy behemoth and start that journey into Paladia with Helena.
Which leaves us with one final thought for you to chew on while you're clicking that link. If Helena manages to piece herself back together, relying on Kaine and whatever secrets he reveals, does she become the same resistance fighter the guilds feared? Or does the process itself, the influence of the necromancer, the trauma of forgetting, forge someone entirely new, someone maybe unexpected?
Go find out. Grab your copy today. As always, the link to purchase Alchemized is right there in the video description. Thanks for joining us on What's Hot in the Bookstore.